Mercedes loves a niche, so it came as a little surprise when it introduced the GLB, which sits in between the GLA and the GLC in the firm's range of compact SUVs. Today, we're testing it in headlining AMG A35 guys, which brings a performance 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine under the bonnet, all-wheel drive, but with that same practicality-focused body style and, most importantly, 7 seats. The question is, can it bridge that gap between performance and practicality in a successful way? The GLB has big boxy proportions, which actually give it quite a lot of presence out on the road for what is quite a compact car. You've got contrast roof rails up top and a huge front grille, which houses an equally large Mercedes badge. Overall, it's got quite a chunky, appealing aesthetic to it. The GLB actually sits on the same platform that underpins the A-Class, but it's got a much longer wheelbase, which is why you've got so much more space inside. It's got a deliberately upright stance too, and that gives you more headroom inside, while these wide aperture doors make it easier to access the cabin. Now, as we've come to expect from most modern Mercedes cars, the interior of the GLB is, well, it's quite fantastic really. You've got this ultra wide screen setup ahead of you, which is a combination of 2 screens put together to make one solid display. So ahead of you, you've got a digital driver's system, which means you can configure it to show all manner of different readouts. And then in the middle, you've got your media and satellite navigation functions, and you also got Apple CarPlay too for connecting your phone. The material quality isn't too bad. There are some slightly harsher plastics, but these vents in particular are a standout feature, and they light up at night, which is just really cool. Then when it comes to practicality, you've got a decent sized glove box. You've got quite a good sized cubby in the middle too. And you've got it's quite a thin door bin at the side, which won't be big enough for a large water bottle, but is useful enough for storing smaller items. In the middle, we've got this control pad, which replaces the old rotary controller that you might remember was on previous Mercedes models. But interestingly, we've now got this nice handrest, so it's easier to use while you're driving along. Overall, it's a very nicely finished cabin, and it's a great place to be. Thanks to the GLB's upright position, we've got plenty of headroom in here, and we've actually got a good amount of legroom too. The plastics seem a little lower quality back here though. These are quite scratchy, that's quite scratchy, this is all quite scratchy, so the feeling of premium quality has dropped off as you've moved back. That said, you have got some handy charging points. So they are USB-C, so if you want to use a USB connector, you will need an adapter. And then in the middle, you've got 2 handily located cup holders as well. At either side, we've got quite deep door bins, and as you can see, we've got useful netting ahead of us. You can also adjust how much seating you want by using the rails below. And that becomes particularly important when you think that you've got an extra set of seats behind you. The space is reasonably tight back here. That sloping roofline which comes back does mean that your headroom is impeded upon slightly, but actually it's not too bad for legroom. And you have got USB sockets again and some small cup holders here too. These seats also have ISOFIX points, so you could mount a child's seat back here too. In terms of emergency use, so if you've got 7 people that you need to move around all of a sudden, these are definitely going to come in handy. However, if you're looking to take 7 people around all the time, well, it's not going to prove popular, particularly when it comes to boot space. So as you can see, with the rearmost seats in place, there's not a lot of space here at all. So those really can only be seen as extra seats, which will come in handy if you need them from time to time. But when you do have them in place, you're not going to be taking a lot of kit with you. What do you think? Do you think you could live with a boot space like this, or do you think this 7-seat setup is more of a novelty in a car like this rather than a genuine feature? Let us know in the comments below. As you can see, the GLB has a really flexible boot setup with loads of configurations between seat and boots available. The GLB 35 uses a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine which kicks out an impressive 302 brake horsepower and 400 Nm of torque, and that's sent to all 4 wheels through an 8-speed automatic gearbox. Despite being slightly heavier than the A35 that it's based on, the GLB still manages the 0 to 60 sprint in an impressive 5 seconds, and it'll carry on to a top speed of 155 miles an hour. Now, when it comes to fuel economy, Mercedes claims 32.1 mpg, while CO2 emissions stand at 200 grams per kilometre. Now, you'd usually think that the change to a high-riding crossover body style will come at the detriment to dynamic performance, but that just doesn't seem to be the case with the GLB. This 35 model in particular has got, well, it's got quite a lot of prowess in the bends, to be honest with you. You might expect it to be all wallowy and a bit floppy in the corners, but it just doesn't do that. We've got adaptive suspension in this car, so you can change the firmness via a button down on the side. And in its firmest setting, it is a bit too stiff for the UK, and it does thud and jump through potholes and over imperfections. However, leave it in its softest setting and it's really quite pleasant. It manages to roll over those imperfections again, and it actually gives you a good idea of what the car's doing. At motorway speeds, it's a refined and quiet place to be, and even though you've got that quite upright windscreen, there's not an awful lot of wind noise to speak of. There's a small amount of road noise, but that comes courtesy of these quite large alloy wheels. In terms of performance, this 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine that we've seen used across the Mercedes range in cars like the A35 and the A45 brings a lot of power. The 8-speed automatic gearbox that it's linked to is sharp and it's clever when it's left in automatic mode, but when you want to take control, the response of it is really good. The steering isn't the most responsive that we've seen, but that's something we've come to expect from modern steering systems, but it is accurate and you can place the car nicely on the road, though you don't get an awfully good sense of what the front wheels are doing. When it comes to visibility, the GLB does well again. These pillars at the front aren't too wide, so they don't block your vision by too much, and over your shoulder, Mercedes has done well to put in a lot of glass, which means that you've got plenty of visibility over there too. You might think that the adoption of a high-riding SUV body shape would come at the detriment to dynamic performance in an AMG, but that really isn't the case with the GLB 35. It's really comfortable to be in, and we've got dynamic suspension that we can tailor to the particular road that you're on. In its firmest setting, it is a little bit too sharp and it does thud and crest through potholes and imperfections on the road, but leave it in its softest setting and it provides more than enough support while also being exceptionally comfortable. It's quite an exciting yet grown-up car. When you want it to settle down, it can, but if you want it to put a smile on your face and make the most of a country road, then it'll do that too. It's a great all-rounder, actually. The Mercedes-AMG GLB 35 represents quite a unique proposition in the market. In fact, in terms of compact 7-seaters, it's pretty much got the segment to itself. If you do want a car that has that generous practicality that you only get with an SUV, it delivers in that sense. And also, if you do want some added performance, which really will put a smile on your face, it has that too. It's not often that we come to recommend a crossover. Usually we'd say we'd pick an estate car or a hatchback, but this GLB really does make a solid case for itself. Thank you for watching this Motors.co.uk new car review on the Mercedes-AMG GLB 35. If you'd like to see some similar reviews on some of the GLB's key rivals, then follow the links coming up next. And while you're here, please subscribe to the Motors.co.uk YouTube channel, hitting that bell icon so you get a notification each time we put up a new video.